Okay, good evening everyone. We will be discussing the last part of our adjusting entry so that in our next video we can move forward na to the adjusting trial balance and then the adjusted trial balance. So this time around, discuss natin yung accrued income. So an accrued income is an income already earned but not yet received. So the service or have been rendered already or yung goods have been delivered na pero hindi pa tayo nababayaran. The entry to record that one is income receivable or accrued income, or we can even use accounts receivable. And then of course the income, the service revenue, or the sale. So to record income earned. So example, a 1 year 6% note receivable in the amount of 200,000 was received on January 1. The interest and principal are payable on the maturity date and gave the adjusting journal entry on June 30. So we receive a note receivable, and this note receivable is interest bearing. Okay, interest bearing. Paano ko nasabi? Because of the 6%. So even if walang nakalagay dyan na 6 na annually, monthly, or weekly, since silent siya, we will always assume that this rate is good for 1 year. Okay? And we received that one on January 1, 2016. The principal amount or the face value of the note is 200,000 pesos. And then, the interest and the principal will be payable at the maturity date. Now, the question is, what is the adjusting entry on June 30? So, we receive the amount on January 1, and then we will be making an adjusting entry on June 30. So, since interest-bearing your note natin, nag-accumulate siya ng interest income. Sir, bakit interest income and hindi interest expense? Kasi the note is a receivable. Tayo yung tatanggap. And since tayo yung tatanggap, then it accrues as an income. So from January 1 to June 30, meron ng January, February, March, April, May, June. So there is already 6 months na lumipas. And since interest increases or accumulates as time passes by, yung note natin kumikita na rin. Okay? Good for 6 months. That is why, for our entry on January 1, notes receivable and then credit cash to record the release of the money pertaining the note receivable. So, nagpalabas tayo ng pera and we receive a note for the said money. So, parang nagpautang tayo this time. And then, for our adjusting entry, meron tayong debit, interest receivable, and then credit, interest income. Saan galing yung 6,000 pesos? It came from the principal na 200, the 6% annual rate, and then the 1/2 year. So, from January to June. So, meron na tayong 6 months worth of interest income, but we will not be collecting it yet. Therefore, interest receivable siya. Receivable pa lang siya for the said interest income. Therefore, we can safely assume that on June 30, 2016, we are already entitled sa 6,000 pesos na interest income. So, kung medyo nalito kayo, you find it confusing, please let me know in the comment section. Kasi there are a lot of students that finds it hard to embrace the thought na meron na silang income considering na wala pa silang nakolektang pera. Because again, we are following the accrual basis of accounting wherein we earn income kahit hindi pa tayo nababayaran. And since in this case, 6 months na yung lumipas, therefore, nanganak na yung pera natin. And how much? That is 6,000 pesos. Example number 2. Drumstick Chickens rendered catering services last December 15, 2015. The price is 75,000 and since no payment has been received yet, they did not make any journal entry. So, at the end of the year, since hindi sila nag-record, na wherein dapat silang nag-record, sir, bakit dapat silang nag-record? Because, again, the service have already been rendered. And since na-render na siya, we are already entitled to the said income and the said cash. Therefore, since hindi siya na-record on December 31, 2015, we will be needing an adjusting entry to correct our previous error wherein kailangan nating dagdagan yung service income natin. Okay? So, debit and credit service income, 75,000 pesos. And then, accounts receivable or accrued service income, 75,000 pesos. Again, the debit here is a receivable account to record the revenue from the service rendered. So, that's it for accrued income. Next one is the bad debts or the doubtful accounts, uncollectible accounts. So, bad debts or doubtful accounts are losses due to uncollectible accounts. So, kung nagpapautang ka sa businesses mo and there is a certain portion of your collectibles na alam mong hindi mo na talaga makokolekta or you are already considering na baka hindi na siya makolekta kasi hindi na nagre-reply, hindi na dumadaan sa tindahan nyo, wala na rin sa old house nila. So, it is somehow reasonable to record a bad debts or doubtful accounts to account for that uncollectible accounts. So, it demands an adjusting entry at the end of the accounting period. So, by the way, we are following the allowance method. Allowance method for accounting for bad debts. So, paano yan? We debit doubtful accounts expense. This is an expense accounts. And we credit allowance for doubtful accounts. Allowance for doubtful accounts is what you call a contra asset account. Contra asset siya kasi binabawas siya from the asset. And in this case, the asset is accounts receivable. And then, pag may nakita tayong credit balance, allowance for doubtful accounts, it means na kailangan nating i-deduct yan sa accounts receivable. So, allowance for doubtful accounts. So, binabawas yan to get the carrying amount of the accounts receivable. Kaya tinatawag siyang contra asset account. Example, accounts receivable shows a balance of 100,000 pesos. It is estimated that 8% of this is uncollectible. Provide the adjusting journal entry at the end of the year. So, meron tayong collectible, accounts receivable na 100,000. Because of some additional details, it is assumed that 88% of the 100,000 is uncollectible. Therefore, it will need an adjusting entry for the doubtful accounts. That is why debit bad debts expense or doubtful accounts expense, credit allowance for bad debts or allowance for doubtful accounts, 8,000 pesos. So, nadagdagan yung bad debts expense natin and then nadagdagan din yung contra asset account natin. So, saan galing yung 8,000? Simple lang, 100,000 times 8%, Therefore, 8,000. So, if we will be asked how much yung carrying amount ng accounts receivable natin, it is simply this. 100,000, ito yung AR natin, less the allowance for doubtful accounts na 8,000, the carrying amount of our accounts receivable is only 92,000. 100,000 yung recorded accounts receivable, pero 8,000 of it is deemed uncollectible. Although, pagdating nyo sa intermediate accounting, there are more entries that are related to doubtful accounts. But for now, yan lang tayo. Yan lang yung i-discuss natin. Next one. Accounts receivable still shows 100,000. It is estimated that 8% is uncollectible. However, this time around, yung allowance for bad debts natin in the general ledger, meron siyang balance na 1,000. Again ha, since contra asset ito, contra asset, and the normal balance of contra asset accounts are credit. So, merong credit balance na 1,000 yung allowance for doubtful accounts natin. So, provide the adjusting entry. So, this is a bit tricky. The entry natin to record the adjusting entry is still bad debts expense or doubtful accounts expense, 7,000 pesos. And then, allowance for doubtful accounts, 7,000. Now, you might be asking, Sir, bakit 7,000? Diba 100,000 yung AR, tsaka 8% yung uncollectible. Di ba dapat 8,000? Yes, dapat 8,000. Okay? Yan yung ending balance natin. However, meron tayong 1,000 na na-record. So, 1,000 yung na-record, 8,000 yung dapat niyang balance, kailangan na lang nating dagdagan yung allowance for doubtful accounts ng 7,000. So, 1,000 plus the 7,000, magiging 8,000 siya. So, it matches our data wherein 8% of the accounts receivable is uncollectible. So, yun yung explanation niyan. And lastly, for the depreciation expense, it is the allocation of the plant asset cost over its estimated useful life. So, we already have a video discussing depreciation. So, but this time around, meron na tayong journal entry or adjusting entry. So, this is the expense allotted for the wear and tear of the property, plant, and equipment due to the passage of time. Another way I explain it to students is that when we purchase a vehicle, for example, okay, tapos meron siyang 5 years useful life, ina-advance natin. So, parang we are making advance payment for the said property na gagamitin natin for the next 5 years. Since advance payment ito, we will be recording an expense account gradually for the next 5 years. So, yan yung tinatawag nating depreciation expense. Advance payment for something that we will be using for the next 5 years. So, there are 3 factors that we have to consider in computing for depreciation expense. The purchase cost, the salvage value, it is the estimated value at the end of its useful life. Take note ha, hindi, ang daming nagtatanong, no? Hindi po constant na 500,000 yan. It will always depend on anong klase ng property, how long is its useful life, and ano yung parang market value niya at the end of the useful life. So, wala pong constant number dyan. You have to consult an expert on the said property. So, if it is real estate, contact a real estate appraiser or a broker. If it is a vehicle, for example, consult a car dealer. So, again, it depends on the property. And of course, the estimated useful life. So, ilang years natin siyang pwedeng gamitin. So, the formula for computing the annual depreciation, hindi per month, is cost ng property less the salvage value, then lalabas yung tinatawag nating depreciable cost. The depreciable cost is the cost na i-depreciate natin by dividing it with the useful life of the property, and then lalabas si annual depreciation. So kung gagawa tayo ng equation, depreciation will be cost minus salvage value divided by useful life. So ito yung annual depreciation formula. Okay? So, paano ang entry? Debit, depreciation expense. Then, lagyan mo ng apelido, name of the property. Kung equipment, may equipment yan. Kung building yan, may building dyan. Then, baliktad. Yung may apelido pala, usually is the accumulated depreciation. So, equipment. Okay. So, debit, depreciation expense, credit, accumulated depreciation, equipment, kung equipment yung dine-depreciate, building, kung building, or again, depending on the property. Example, a building with an estimated useful life of 30 years was finished on June 1. Okay, take note of the date. The cost of the building is 4.8 million and with a salvage value of 300,000. So, ano yung adjusting entry niya in relation sa depreciation? So, debit, depreciation expense, 87,500. Credit, accumulated depreciation, building, 87. Paano kinuha si 87? Cost minus the salvage value, 4.5 yung depreciable cost, divided by the useful life na 30. So, meron tayong annual depreciation na 150. Sir, bakit dinivide ng 12? Kasi, yung natapos yung construction June 1, we are required to make an adjusting entry on December 31. Therefore, hindi siya umabot ng isang taon, kaya we will just be computing for the months. June, we include June kasi June 1 yan. June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So, that is 7 months. So, 150, the annual depreciation, divided by 12, the number of months in a year. So, 12.5 times 7, kaya lumabas si 87,500. So, ang magiging presentation niyan sa balance sheet is that building. By the way, accumulated depreciation is also a contra asset account just like the allowance for doubtful accounts. Less accumulated depreciation, 87. So, yung carrying amount ng building natin is 4712. So, parang ganun. Okay? Tama ba to? Okay, parang tama naman. Next. The company constructed its own building, cost 22 million, 25 useful life, and then salvage value is 1 million. The building was completed April 30 and depreciated started after its completion. So, 560 debit, depreciation expense, credit, building, accumulated depreciation, 560. Saan kinuha si 560? Cost minus salvage value, depreciable cost is 21 divided by the useful life. So, we have an annual depreciation of 840,000. But then again, from April 30 to December 31, hindi yan umabot ng 1 year. Therefore, we will be computing for the 8 months worth of useful life. So, we don't include April kasi April 30 yan. So, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So, that's 8 months, kaya 560,000. Okay? Then, last one. Last example. Ang haba ng video natin, no? So, just bear with me kasi this is the last part of our adjusting entries. Australia delivery needed 4 trucks. Ito, medyo madugo to. In 2015. 2 trucks were purchased on May 1 and then for 1,850 each. And another 2 trucks binili on July 1. So, dalawa on May 1, dalawa din on July 1. At a total price of 15% higher than the May. So, kung yung binili natin on May is 1,850, yung binili naman natin on July 1 is mas mahal siya ng 15%. So, for this type of depreciable assets, Australia is allocating 8%. So, yung salvage value is hindi siya number, absolute figures. Instead, it is in percentage with 8 years useful life. So, depreciation is ito. So, paano yan kinuha? Okay, compute natin. On May 1, meron tayong 1,850 na dalawa. Times 2. So, 370. And then, 370, kasi nga, sabi nga, mas mahal daw siya ng 15%. So, times 1.15, ang lalabas niyan is 4,255. And then, saan kinuha yung salvage value? 37 times the 8%. Check natin, no? Baka maraming diskumpiyado. 37 times 0.08. So, yan. 2,960. And then, same goes there. 8% din yan. So, the depreciable cost is 3,4 and then 3,9 divided by 8 years. So, ito po ang annual depreciation natin. Divided by 12. Divide 12. Lalabas si 35 and then 40. So, yung first set of trucks natin, binili natin siya ng May 1. And then, nag-adjustment tayo on December. So, that's May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So, that's 8 months. 35 monthly depreciation times 8 months. Ito yon. Yung July, after 2 months naman, bumili ulit tayo, pero mas mahal. So, that's July, August, September, October, November, December. So, that's only 6 months. Ito yan. So, you add this to depreciation expense, lalabas si 5,2. So, ayun, that's it. Pansit. Ang haba ng discussion natin. But if you have questions, clarifications, feel free to comment it down sa baba. That's all and may gabi sa tanan.